Alright everyone, this is the kind of linguistic propaganda bullshit that we have to deal with in the modern era. Forbes releasing an article called Gatekeeping Isn't Censorship, basically. So basically, censorship isn't censorship. The thing is this, they're trying to make a differentiation that doesn't exist. It's like saying, no, I'm not giving you ketchup. I'm giving you corn syrup and tomato paste with red dye in it. It's not. No. Don't call it ketchup. It's something totally different. This isn't an office. This is just an enclosed area that I happen to do my work in. See, there's a big difference between these two things. This is the sort of stuff that happens with linguistic propaganda, Newspeak, 1984 bullshit. Anyone taken in by this fucking article should read 1984 and probably Brave New World and Animal Farm and all the other great classics that are Slaughterhouse 5 or 9. I can't remember. God damn it. My English teacher would kill me for that, by the way. Vonnegut's a cool dude. Just read anything by Kurt Vonnegut. Anyway, the idea is preposterous. Yes, gatekeeping is censorship. In fact, it's more insidious because you're trying to create a family-friendly label for it. It's like the war on terror, which is really just a U.S. overreach and Western imperialism around the third world to try to bomb civilians in order to keep places destabilized for economic reasons. But if you actually term it that, it's a little bit different than war on terror. Oh, don't worry, it's a war on terror. We're just killing like jihadists and stuff. No, you're not. Most of the casualties are civilians. How's it a war on terror? It's a war of terror, is what it is. By the way, Borat reference. Should definitely watch that movie if you haven't. If you haven't watched Borat, then you're definitely not a millennial. I can tell you that much. Dear God. The idea that gatekeeping's not propaganda, though, not censorship, is completely wrong. This is propaganda. Somebody probably paid this dude to write this article. It probably wasn't just Forbes. I wonder who bankrolled this individual for this, because this is straight up linguistic warfare. It is censorship. Gatekeeping is the idea that multinational multi-billion dollar corporations and the billionaires that run them should be tasked with deciding what is or is not objectively true and therefore fit for consumption. The differentiation that's attempted in this article is that censorship is skewing things for like socio-political reasons, creating an alternate truth, drowning out things that are actually true, suppressing them. That gatekeeping is different because it's just promulgating what is objectively true and just hiding that which is demonstrably false. The problem is, within political opinion, analytic discourse, and things of that nature, there's no such thing as an objective truth. For events, there can be. But for the analysis of those events, there can't be. You can't get objective truth. When you're dealing with like a story, let's say you're doing a story about the deep state. We don't know, objectively, whether there is or is not such an apparatus present. So people that are skeptical of it call it a conspiracy theory. And people that accept it on token, as, this sort of Cold War-esque function does exist, would say that someone's like a shill or a sellout if they're denying it. But we don't know which is objectively true, because unless you penetrate the ranks of the upper echelons of the FBI and all these other groups, you wouldn't know. And due to compartmentalization, it would be multiple bureaus you'd have to get your way through into in order to know. The only people that know if the deep state exists are deep state actors if it does, and nobody if it doesn't. Either way, it's going to look a lot like it exists to people that accept it, whether or not it actually does. And people that don't believe in it would rather use the term conspiracy theory than to seriously consider the idea of conspiracies within government grown at the highest levels. The idea that power corrupts, that compartmentalization and separation of power within bureaucracy has failed fundamentally, and that it's led to corruption at the highest levels within these bureaus. So there's no objective truth to be had. It's like if you're talking about some mysterious event, like say the JFK assassination. How are you going to police that? There are multiple theories that compete to explain the events. There's an official storyline, but it's one that even the majority of Americans don't accept. To gatekeep would be to suppress all of those alternate scenarios that could be possibly part of the JFK assassination. Bungling by Secret Service. LBJ wanted to be president, had him knocked off by Oswald. Oswald didn't act alone. Oswald didn't act at all. It was communists. It was Cuban agents. There are a million different explanations for it. Just because the official storyline remains enshrined at the legal level for legal purposes because the government determined through its own reporting that it wasn't responsible for JFK's death doesn't mean that's an objective fact. It's something that can be looked into. Climate change, there's a lot of fake objectivity within that as well. well, this is the way that it works, any differentiation is purely wrong. But the thing is, even if you accept climate change in its general overarching form, it's there, it's harmful, it's man-made. Let's say that you accept that. Everything else with regards to analysis within that particular science is malleable. Years ago, they couldn't figure out where the missing degrees were going. Then it was getting sunk into the deep ocean. Then I think it was getting absorbed by the Amazon or something. Now it's getting spewed out all over South America. That particular part of the analysis changes. It is not goalpost shifting or straw manning or a logical fallacy or a conspiracy theory or denialism, revisionism, any of these other buzz terms that are trotted out by people who accept whatever official story is being given. It is not wrong or negative in any way to question that part of a narrative. To question the analysis, the secondary analysis of a narrative should always be questioned. The very idea that a for-profit corporate entity can be trusted with the power to gatekeep reporting or analysis is crazy anyway. What if it involves that same corporation? What if we find out that Google's been suppressing criticism of Google, Facebook suppresses criticism of Facebook? I got my account on Dailymotion a couple days ago. By the way, link in the description. You should join me on Dailymotion. Help me in my war on terror. So go to Soccer Moms and tell them that I'm fighting terrorists by getting a big Dailymotion channel. They'll sign up next second. And it's for the children. Think of the children. It's right think. Get the small minds on there. They won't know what they're seeing. A couple days ago, got banned on there. Why? Because supposedly I was encouraging people there to use like other platforms I was on as a person who's also a brand. Now that never happened, but even if it did, wouldn't that be kind of funny for a corporation to be able to suppress natively and even beyond its own platform criticism? And then we have the collusion factor. Here's the other worrying part, like with the InfoWars ban or Tommy Robinson or something. You have instances where a centralized group is issuing request to all of these different tech firms or corporations or banks or whatever to try to mass suppress a person all at once. That's collusion. That's literally, it's a trust. It's monopolization. It's explicitly wrong. It's also what the left fought against for a century and now is embracing because Orange Man bad. Because Nazis. There's a big problem with Nazis. No, there's not. It's like there was a separate article, same day. In fact, I think it was within a few hours of the other one. Oh, we must silence the racists online. You can't even properly identify who they are. It's really problematic. See, the other problem is in this. The misapplication of such powers at the corporate level is very dangerous. So you've got a situation where someone is called, like with Facebook's Facebook issuing a fatwa against Paul Joseph Watson, which is, ironically, that's not even that hyperbolic. The idea of people on the dangerous people list, you can hyperbolically call for death against them and stuff like that. It was pointed out, but some of the people on there, they're not dangerous people. Candace Owens, she's not like the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Paul Joseph Watson doesn't call people to do violent things or say crazy shit and try to get people burned or anything like that. No, people need to fucking calm down. When you get to the point where you're trusting billionaires to tell you what you can and cannot think, that's the anathema of what the internet was there to begin with to stop. The internet became big specifically because there was no corporate gatekeeper deciding what kind of stuff was there. That's why it's interesting. That's why it made a lot of money and still does. That's why it became so all-encompassing. It's pretty much absorbed TV and radio at this point. TV, radio, and telephone services are all basically just part of that same internet. All world communication structures are now intertwined. Even ham radio is intertwined with the internet. There are a million different places you can go where oh, here's my live broadcast of my local ham radio truck traffic sort of talk and stuff like that. You can get police scanners online shit. Somebody set up a CB radio in their garage and hatched it into the internet, and now they're amalgamated on a fucking website. Radio gets set into podcast form, TV shows, on-demand services, they're all intertwined with the internet. You're telling me that you think it's appropriate, acceptable for a few dozen billionaires to decide that a person shouldn't even be part of that. So basically, you're essentially exiling them to the Stone Age. For all intents and purposes, you're removing their ability to conduct commerce. You're removing their ability to live a normal life. You may think that they're reprehensible. I think that billionaires doing that is reprehensible. I think people that support that are reprehensible. The difference is I don't believe those people should be exiled from society. I think they should be rehabilitated. I think we need to poke around in these people's brains a little bit and try to figure out what we can do to reverse this corporate propaganda. Because billionaires are the ones making propaganda like this. Forbes is a major company. Of course they want censorship. Forbes is tired of dealing with a situation in which some YouTuber is taking away their readership by making content much more interestingly and much more cheaply than they can possibly make it, in which they get a fraction of the return for a much more large investment in time. What happens is that time usage is switching to creators, independent creators, and this is after all of these sites are demoting us all. We're still growing. Forbes isn't growing. Forbes is shrinking. All these sites are shrinking. Their websites are less and less because they fucking suck. Forbes fucking sucks. That's what it boils down to. That's about all. Peace out.